instead of like really smart us, but like in a kind of way. In a yay way. Yeah.
Yeah, favorite corpse you buried?
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Bear, and I'm an event facilitator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. And before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Ninawak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. And I've been asked to keep tonight's opening comments brief, so I'll just let you know that we are delighted to be partnering again with our friends at Prairie Comics Festival to present the evening of conversation between Festival Director S.M. Biko and Canadian comics creators Jeff Lemire and Jenn Woodall. And I'll be back at just for the question portion of the evening, where I'll pass this wireless microphone around to you just to be heard on tonight's live stream, and then just to go over the sign-up procedure. I'll pass it along to our festival now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming, especially those of you who spent the entire day at the festival, and now you are here. Delighted to see you again, delighted to see folks joining us. Yes, I'm so excited. Welcome to Prairie Comics Festival 2025. We're taking place at the museum this year in Alloway Hall, and we're loving it so far. We're also welcoming two awesome award-winning, best-selling comics folks from Toronto in Winnipeg for the first time. Hooray! Jeff Lemire, Jenn Woodall, welcome. Yeah. Also, because first time in Winnipeg, first time in McNally Robinson, they have been briefed on the lore of this tree that's next to us in the atrium, and just how cool and awesome this whole shop is. So thanks so much for coming tonight. We are just going to hang out and talk about comics and how cool it is to make them and manifest them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt us, because that's more fun. Don't whisper at me, Gregory, from the front row. And hello out there to everyone who is watching on YouTube. Rarely do you get acknowledged, but you're at home and you're also participants. So if you have questions, I believe the chat is being moderated by Daniel. If not, it is now. Okay, so, poor Daniel. Okay. Yes, so Jeff and Jenn, I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your work, because we skipped over having them read your bios with your 10,000 accolades, which we'll cover tonight.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
That's all right. Oh, sorry. So my name is Jenn. I'm a cartoonist and illustrator from Toronto. I'm originally from Brampton, which is a small city in Ontario, but I reside in Toronto. I've been a cartoonist for, I'd say, the better part of 10 years now. I work primarily with a publisher in the US called Silver Sprocket, but I've also worked with Oni Press, Boom Studios, IDW, mostly in an art capacity. I studied illustration at OCADU, which is the Ontario College of Art and Design. And yeah, my career is mostly primarily mixing freelance illustration work with being a cartoonist, and then I'm also a risograph enthusiast and teach people about it.
yeah, I love that rice-based ink.
Yep.
Good distribution, all those drums. And hello, Jeff.
Hey, yeah, I'm Jeff Lemire. I'm based in Toronto as well. I grew up in a little farming community near Essex County in Ontario. Came to Toronto in the 90s to go to film school. Decided I didn't want to make films, but I love making comics. I always loved drawing and everything, so I just started drawing comics and skipping classes, and that worked out okay for me. So I've done all kinds of stuff, you know, from the most mainstream superhero Marvel DC stuff to more independent personal work, which I kind of continue to balance those two worlds for the last, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and you're done now.
And that was it. This is tonight's I'm retiring.
Oh my God.
Hey.
Oh, you heard it here first.
No.
No, it's not.
Just got
That's
a
not.
job at the bookstore.
Well,
Yeah.
honestly,
Moving to Winnipeg.
yeah, it's a Hallmark movie. Let's pitch it to them.
Oh, let's go.
But then it's a horror at the end. All right. Anyway, that is, yeah. You've also have film experience, right, Jenn? You also come from the film world or slid into it a little bit?
Yeah, I studied fashion design initially in university and decided it wasn't for me, so I kind of parlayed that into a film career. So I worked as a costume designer, costume builder, set designer, or set supervisor, I should say. And I decided this also isn't for me. And then I always liked drawing, I always loved comics, so I decided I would go back to school and study art and then build a comics career.
Yeah, and you did it.
I did.
You are not done.
No.
No.
Not yet.
No. And yeah, it does really shows in all your work, just like the attention to detail and clothing is very iconic. And I mentioned this in our previous panel, but my first interaction with your work was on someone was wearing the t-shirt of "You've been catcalled, what do you do?" and all the options are kill. But like, you know, the girl just has this look on her face, like so unhinged, but she's wearing like the coolest like vest and she's just like, let's go. So that has parlayed nicely into where you are now. So the two of you, well, Jeff, you mentioned you just sort of, you just drew comics for fun, bud, and now you're in it. Yeah, talk a little bit about that, about like why did you just fixate on comics, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I probably saw my first comics when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was obsessed immediately, you know, and I don't know, who knows why that was, but it never really stopped. And I was always drawing comics as a kid and everything. But I grew up, you know, in a small town, and I didn't know anyone who was involved in the arts in any way. You know, everyone in my family and my circle of, you know, existence was a factory worker or a farmer. So, you know, creating a life making art or making comics didn't seem like I did not know the path to do that. But, you know, I also love film and storytelling of all sorts. So I knew that there was a big film industry in Toronto. So when I finished high school, I thought that was like the closest thing kind of to doing comics in a way. And so I did that. But like I said, I started just drawing more and more when I got to the city. And also just seeing how comics is a much more, I guess, direct medium where like one person can sit down at a desk and create the story and fulfill their vision, whereas film is such a collaborative and expensive medium to work in. It just seemed much more suited to my personality, and I just really kind of went all in on it and started self-publishing. And, yeah.
Did you get like a little table at a zine fair and you're like,
Yeah.
here everyone?
For sure, yeah. I started doing Canzine in Toronto.
Yeah.
I think were my first shows, and then probably like early TCAFs and things like that. Yeah, so it was all small press shows. I mean, the internet wasn't really what it was now, so you couldn't really share your work online the same way. So it really was like much more grassroots, like doing shows and handing your books out at bookshops and find consignment,
Right.
mailing them to people and things. So,
You didn't have an RSS feed where it was like updates Monday, Wednesday,
I
Fridays.
still don't know what that is. So no.
Oh. Did you have a webcomic of any kind, Jen? Like where it was like, it's on LiveJournal and you're just like throwing it up there? Or were you in the online space in that way?
I did have a really unfortunate webcomic.
I'm sure like
Between the ages of 18 and 20, but it was like an autobio comic that was, I think it was hosted on Keenspace, which is no longer around as far as I understand, but it has been obliterated from the internet, which is very good because it was very embarrassing.
I'm like, so you're like, I want it. Did you ever print it or you just did it online?
No, it was only online.
Yeah.
And it was just basically like me and my friends, like, you know, it was an autobio. So it's like, oh, school sucks. I went to Montana's and the wings I had were bad. I went to Bogmean and I bonked my head. It was very, you know.
I went to Chelsea's and she's starting drama with Jason and Tommy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was not good. Only like my long-term friends have seen it and can remember it, and it just like, it doesn't need to be seen by anyone. It's boring, it's embarrassing.
But it was a building block in the archaeology
Yes,
of
I
general.
learned what not to do.
Sure.
I learned this is bad.
Like
don't
working
do
at a
this.
dysfunctional mom and pop shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, that's still good though. I think someday maybe,
Yeah.
you'll be like 90 and you'll be like, hey, kids.
No.
Um,
Unleash it on the world.
Yeah.
And then just like die as soon as it's released. So no one can give me any feedback. Or they're like, wow, you said like a lot of things that are not cool to say now in 2025.
Yeah.
I'm dead now, so it doesn't matter.
And all your friends who are like in the retirement home on life support in the comic, they're like, she released it.
Oh, she did it.
Yeah.
Why did she do this?
Oh God, okay. Hey, Jeff.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's good material. But I mean, like what's something that you said where you're like, there wasn't really a path. You were just sort of like, I guess I want to fixate on this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do that because, as you also said earlier, it requires, Jen said it, I don't really want to say that you have to have something wrong with you to make comics, but you sort of do.
It helps.
It does help. It helps.
Yeah. So yeah, you both just sort of paved your own path out of whatever you were doing or not wanting to do. And now you're here and like, Jeff, like you're doing like, you're at DC now.
Yeah, I do some stuff at DC and then I'm writing and drawing a monthly book for Boom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and also you just have this, we have it on the table here, your graphic memoir just came out.
Yeah, I just put out my memoir, so it kind of goes through my whole career from, from the early 2000s to now, book by book or project by project, and I sort of talk about what was going on in my life while I was doing each book and sort of the process of each comic, and so it's sort of like half memoir, half process, stuff, and
It's like a retrospective also.
Yeah.
So
because, as we know, my career stops tonight, so like
yeah. So actually this is the whole thing, and so nothing else will come after it, so you're done.
Yeah.
It's all complete in your collection. God, I had a really good transition too. Yes, autobio, but yes, Jen, also you were just talking about your autobio we'll never see, but now you actually have autobio comics out there that we can see that have been refined and put through the grinder or the filter, sorry. In Dumbass, where it's like just sort of like your burnout and so like how did it feel sort of excavating that stuff, like and putting it on the page? Did it feel like cathartic? Because maybe you're like, a lot of my artist friends can relate to this. Or just, it's good to just see it now out of my head and into the page.
Yeah, I think it was more so that I made Dumbass when I was really feeling quite burnt out from a different project that I had done that didn't really go the way I wanted it to. And I just had all these like really negative thoughts and I had stopped drawing for probably the better part of the year. So I just kind of, was putting my thoughts on paper, making little strips and, then once you start drawing, you kind of start getting more ideas. And then I made the first strip and I think I shared it on like Instagram maybe or showed it to a friend or something. And they're like, oh yeah, this is exactly how I feel. Then I kind of got the idea of like, I'm going to work out all these feelings in my brain and put them in this book. And yeah, it was a really positive experience. I didn't really like go into the project thinking it was going to be my next like issue comic, but it had like a pretty good audience reception. And then like the best part of it is that when I finished it, I was like, oh, I feel a lot better now. And then, I wasn't kind of ruminating the way that I was before. So sometimes drawing those bad feelings can be good. I mean, sometimes it makes it worse, but for me at least, it kind of like got something out of my brain that I was trying to deal with unsuccessfully by binge watching Kitchen Nightmares, like at home on my couch. And I was like, why aren't I getting better? This is so mysterious.
And then you can like, oh, someone's like coming to your table and they're like, oh yeah, your work's so good, I'm so burnt out. And you're like, I got just things for you.
No, when I have it at shows, it's less so this year, but I don't know if the year I made it, there's something in the air where people would be like, what's this about? And I'd be like, it's about burnout. And they'd be like, I'm buying it.
So it was like post-COVID almost, like everything had come back and everyone was like, I'm sure it'll be fine and normal.
I released the book in 2024. So I think just there was like a general sense of burnt out, maybe like post-COVID or you know, I think everyone is still really burnt out in general, but maybe it's less like I'm burnt out and more like I feel hopeless because the future is really fucked, but
Right,
I don't know.
that's the next book, that's what the next book is going to serve.
Yeah.
And it's just going to go on and on until the revolution, and then we'll be making comics on tree bark.
Yeah, or we'll be using comics to light fires.
Oh, no, no, come back to the light.
Sorry.
And you kind of touched on some of these things in 10,000 Things, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, that was, like Jen, it was a weird year when I did that, because I had done the Essex County TV show for CBC, so I kind of, for the first time in probably 20 years, I had to stop making comics for a significant portion of time because I had to go on set and pre-production and all that stuff. And I think that kind of gave me some weird perspective because I never really stopped working. I'm always like right on to the next project and don't really look back at my old stuff at all. But I think doing the TV show was really stressful and burned me out as well. And I also got this weird kind of stopping point for the first time where I could kind of look back at the old stuff. So yeah, it was kind of cathartic to go back through all that stuff and I don't know, just kind of put it out there and put it all together and kind of say that this is what I've done and now let's start again and move forward. Yeah.
And also just like remember that this didn't just happen to you, your current state. It was like, oh, that insane amount of work in isolation.
Yeah, there
and
was
second
a good,
guessing.
like almost a decade of self-publishing or just drawing stuff that I never published. And before I did anything, right? I was working, I'd work nights in kitchens in Toronto and restaurants, and then I'd just wake up and draw all day and just on repeat, you know, and that was kind of what I thought my life would be right after work a day job. Comics would be the passion or whatever, but luckily, you know, things started to happen. So,
Yeah. Not anymore.
and now I'm back.
Back to the kitchen.
Back to the kitchen. We were just at a good one.
Yeah, I just got a job.
So yeah, you got a job in the kitchen. Yeah, and I think that's also just that when people come to like the festival, they're really like, oh, overwhelmed by all this talent, and they're like, what's the access point?
Yeah.
Like how do I do that for myself? Or like we had some parents with their teenager come up to our table and be like, he has promise.
Yeah.
How do we do this for him? And I was like, well, actually I can't, like, you know, he's already off to a great start. He's drawing for himself for fun.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of like your projects were.
Yeah, I think people want to know how to get into comics. They want some like cheat code.
Yeah.
And the real truth is it's a lot of hard work and a lot of, which is not the fun thing people want to hear. But it's like we probably have to do a lot of hard work and make a lot of bad comics before you start making good ones.
But like you're making them because you really love doing it.
And if you don't really love it, there's no point because it is very time consuming and can be tedious and boring really.
They just stand at the show and they're like, get rich quick scheme. Look at him.
I don't think anyone does that.
I don't know. So I wanted to talk. Did I want to talk about Jen about I want to talk about space trash. So we actually didn't talk about space trash this afternoon. Where did the idea for that come from? Is that going to be a continuing series or is it like a standalone?
No, it will continue. I think the idea for it came because I was part of an art show. This was like in 2014, where they just invited you to do like a portrait basically. So it was at this gallery called Telegraph Gallery. They're now a comic shop. And I just decided like, oh, I don't know who to do. So I decided I'll make up someone. So I made this like cool punk girl astronaut. And then I always thought the image was, the people really liked it, I really liked it. I'm like, I should do something with this character. And then, you know, I initially had like this very basic idea for space trash where I'm like, it's girls and they're in a high school and they fight each other, but they're in space. And then as I began to develop it, I'm like, okay, it has to be more than just they're fighting for no reason and they're in a school in space. Like, why is the school in space? Why are they fighting? Who are these characters, et cetera, et cetera. So then I like spent some time developing it and then pitched it to Oni, and then that's when I got the go ahead to make the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you loved doing it. You enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it?
I mean, I did it.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like, I do enjoy drawing, you get into like that really good flow state, so it feels good to do. But like when you're staring down the barrel of like, I have to do 200 pages of a book, it's really hard and intimidating. It's not exactly fun, so you kind of have to count on knowing you're gonna be able to get into that creative state of mind where like time kind of floats away, you're just drawing and you're like doing your process. So I don't know if I can say it's like fun to do, but it's like, it's weird, it's hard work.
It's fun to hold.
It's fun to hold, it can be fun to do, it can also be horrible to do, it can be tedious to do. It's like a real mixed bag, and I think that's why, like Jeff says, you have to love comics.
Yeah.
Because even when you hate drawing and you don't like the page you're doing, maybe you don't like the script that you read and you wish you could write it, you just have to like keep going because you have to love that you're gonna have a comic at the end of it. Or you just have to have passion for the project, like even though I'm having a bad moment, I believe in this project. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I'm on page 175, scrapped.
Yeah.
You can't really.
Yeah, I do find when you get halfway through a book, for me at least, that's like the time where you're like, I give up, like this is garbage, in the dumpster it goes. So you have to get over the like mid-project hump.
Yeah.
You just have to be like, no, I'm halfway, I'm not restarting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got a
Comics are
script,
hard.
you've got a plan, you're not just like
Yeah.
drawing into white space.
Yeah, exactly. It is just like, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
I would say, okay, then my next question is for both of you. What do you prefer, having done autobio versus like completely fantastical? Like, what do you prefer working on? Fiction, nonfiction? Which feels more like close to your idea of being a comics maker?
I think, I don't know if I'm, like, my memoir is obviously autobio, but it's not really comics, like it's prose. I've never really done straight autobio comics, but having said that, there's a lot of me and a lot of my stuff, I kind of wrap it in a little fictional bubble to protect myself. But that stuff
Your maple
always,
syrup addiction.
it always feels better and more fulfilling, I think, to do that more personal kind of stuff where you're like processing things that are going on in your life and putting them directly into your characters or work.
Even though it's more vulnerable than wrapping
Yeah,
up.
but you have to, you have to put that stuff out there, or else the work doesn't feel authentic and no one really gets anything from it, you know? So,
Yeah.
Writing the more, I guess, the more mainstream like Marvel and DC stuff, that can be really fun, but ultimately it's never as fulfilling as my own stuff.
I agree. I prefer writing fiction. I have done some autobio comics, but I do find weirdly I can do more to tackle the kind of things I'm thinking of when I do fiction, because I can kind of couch my issues inside a character. Like I can make this character and be like, I'm gonna give this character all of my worst qualities, and then I can put them in a situation and have them act out in a way that, I wouldn't do, but perhaps this character would. So I do feel like fiction gives you that ability to kind of dig deeper and then to kind of like flesh out this world as well. Autobio can be a bit limited in that way. And then you can also kind of fall into the trap of, now I make exclusively sad autobio comics,
Right.
where I'm just like in my head overanalyzing my thoughts, putting it on the page.
Depicting people who caused you trauma.
Yeah, well,
or-
like, not
You can go
even
further
that.
with things when you have a bit of fiction, whereas if
Yes.
you're doing autobio, you kind of just stick to what really happened. I guess what
Yeah.
you say, you can deal with take something you're dealing with and just even push it even further. Like imagine the worst case scenarios of it and play it
Yeah.
out and stuff, and it can be cathartic.
Yeah, or even like find a solution in this like fictional world, whereas in autobio, you're a bit stuck by your own circumstance. So, the comic can be like, I'm sad, here's why I'm sad, the end. So
Yeah.
with fiction, you can at least like, be like,
Find
oh,
an
and then they did this and they were good, or maybe
Yeah.
they were even more sad, or maybe they died, but there's like a difference.
Yeah. That leads me to the idea of like you talked about, like you've got your script and then you're also both artists. And you've both like put those hats on. Do you prefer having full control or like working in that team collaboration? Do you seek out collaboration more than kind of being like, I'm tired of being in my own world now. Let's go and dance in someone else's.
I mean, for me, I think drawing comics, I said before, is so time intensive and it takes so long. You can only ever really do one project at a time. But when I started writing for other artists as well, it allowed me to have multiple projects going at once, which I found really beneficial because you can get really in your own head on your personal work, and it's nice to take a break and go do another project that's totally different. And it kind of keeps me fresh going between the two. I find anyway, personally.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I could only do one thing, I'd go back to just drawing and writing my own stuff.
In your
because
tower.
It's you just end up putting more of yourself into that by nature of it.
For me, I don't think there has not been a lot of projects where I've collabed, where I've been the artist for someone who's writing. I'm kind of a control freak where I really want things to go my way, and I can sometimes be like a difficult person to work with. So I find it's just like better for me to just like kind of do my own thing. Like I like doing variant covers and things like that, but I find the few circumstances I've, done art while someone has written, I'm like, I don't like this, I don't like that. And then it's not a good feeling to butt heads. So it's just kind of like, I don't feel like I'm able to compromise enough to make that a good situation. So I prefer to just do my own thing. And then I get to do whatever I want. It's like Jeff said, more fulfilling.
And then, but you do get sort of like a little bit, you scratch the good side of that itch with your anthology work.
Yes, that's true.
So you can tell me a little bit about Pulping and how that came about, which won the Ignatz.
Yes, and for anyone who knows what an Ignatz is.
It's a brick.
Yeah, it is a brick. It's an award that is a brick. I'm not 100% sure why, but so Pulping is an anthology. I'm one of the editors for it. The editors are me, Patterson Hodgson, Jonathan Bronstein, John Anaki, and Mitch Lemire. So we're a bunch of Toronto cartoonists, and we decided we wanted to put together an anthology of Toronto cartoonists because Toronto is a comic city. We all really love Toronto. We wanted to give our community a chance to kind of shine. So we did the first volume in 2024. We won the aforementioned Ignatz Award, which is wonderful. We invited our creators to create comics on comics. So that means what you love about comics, what you hate about comics. It could even just be a story with a comic in the background. So it was very, very open. And we just finished volume 2 this year, and the theme was reality. We expanded our contributor base to be Ontario cartoonists, so broadening out, which is really lovely. The book is double the length. And it's been a really rewarding experience because it's like completely kind of divorced from your own ego, because you're just helping other people, like taking their stories, putting the book together. So it's kind of, something where you're actually giving back to the comics community rather than being like, my projects, my books, give me money, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's been really rewarding.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's like a completely different part of your brain.
Yeah, totally.
But you're also like taking all your years of frustration and expertise, and you're like, hey, I can help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe circumvent or realize that these feelings you're having are normal. And you also are really big in the rhizo community.
Yes.
Who here knows what rhizogram printing is? Well, that's good. That's good. I am literally not the authority. Because
I'm not either.
Well, you know what it is. It's like printing on special ink that's rice-based or soy-based, and the colors are very vibrant. And every time it's very like technical for how you set it up and the digital files. Yeah. And then when it comes out, it can have like some variation in just what the final product is. So it comes out looking like, very lovely archival art piece or something.
Yeah, it's like the best way to describe it in a most simplistic way is that it's silk screening inside a Xerox machine. So it prints in stencils, the ink is rice-based, it used to be soy-based. Okay. So when you're doing a piece of art, you're gonna print in the different layers of the colors that you want. So if you want like an image that's say pink and blue, you're gonna put that piece of paper through the machine, it's gonna print the blue layer, and you're gonna put it through the machine again with pink, and then it's gonna put a pink layer on top. And the inks are semi-translucent, so that's how you get color mixing. And it has like a really beautiful tactile texture to it that kind of differentiates it from inkjet versus laser versus silk screening. And it's very cost effective for doing zines, posters, flyers, anything where you need multiples. And it's a very eco-friendly machine as well, because it doesn't use a lot of electricity, and the inks and the cartridges are recyclable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's like you teach it in a lab that
It's
you
almost
run.
like that.
Okay. Almost, but not quite.
No,
No.
not really.
No, and we thank you for your expertise, because there will be a Riso printing place here soon, a studio. And we will take all the advice that we can get from you. Well, Natalie Mark, who will be running it. Jeff, have you ever done any Riso stuff? You have any interest in it?
Yeah, I do. It's amazing. I do want to learn it. I did a lot of self-screening when I was first doing my zines and stuff, which I love, but yeah.
And you're already halfway there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to try it.
I hear it's just the setting up your files that people get
That's
nervous about,
the very dark-sided part of the
Yes.
process.
the very finicky.
Yeah.
I believe in you, Jeff.
I can do
You
it.
can do it. Hey, you can just go to Jenn's, it's a studio, at OCAD, yeah. Do you have to be a student, or is it like someone off the street like this guy?
No, it is a student faculty or student facility, so it is for students and alumni. But you know, you can just email me. I've like helped other cartoonists in the scene before, where I'm just like, yeah, come in, we'll print a book.
Yeah, and your work, you can see Jenn's Riso stuff at Prairie Comics Festival. Yeah, I wanted to just sort of talk about like what you're working on now. Which is just like such a, oh, you killed yourself to do this 200-page book. I read it already. Where's the next thing?
What's the next book?
Yeah, are there like projects in the future that you really want to work on, like that's like your dream project? Whether it's yours or whether it's an IP.
Should I go first?
Oh, sure. So I got a grant from the Canada Arts Council a couple years ago, so I've been working on a graphic novel for the past couple years, which is mental health memoir. So I have generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and OCD. So it's a memoir about how that kind of manifested when I was in college, the fallout, dealing with it, etc. And it's also mixed with this zine that I did some years ago called Marie and Worrywart, which is about intrusive thoughts. So that's like the big thing on my plate right now, which is a very hard project to do, just because you have to like really delve into your memories and try to tell it in an interesting way. And you don't want it to be too depressing, but then you don't want it to be funny, because then it's really disrespectful. So that's what I'm working on. I'm also working on the next magical Beatdown intermittently. And then I have like lots of ideas for things I want to do in the future. It's just unfortunately, I find like switching between projects can be give you a lot of whiplash in terms of like if you have different tones in different projects. So it's just, you know, plans for things down the road.
Yeah, I'm writing and drawing a monthly comic called Minor Arcana, which is it's the best way to describe it is it's about a daughter of a small town storefront psychic who comes home to take care of her mom, but she discovers she has actual psychic abilities, and she's ironically now has to like delve deep into the life of all these people in that small town that she's spent her whole life trying to get away from. And it's about community and human connection and stuff, but it's got a fun supernatural kind of vibe going on. And then I'm writing several books for DC Comics right now, and launching a couple new creator-owned books next year that I'm writing. So yeah, pretty busy.
Do you have a favorite that you're working on for DC that you can talk to outside of your NDA?
Yeah, we're doing this thing called the Absolute Universe at DC, which we just started. It's kind of like reimagining from the ground up the classic characters. So I'm doing the Flash, and I'm working with several other writers who are doing Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and it's been really fun because they've just kind of let the 5 writers just sort of create this whole thing. You know, we're not getting any notes or mandates from the publisher. We're just building it ourselves, and which is kind of like they're almost like creator-owned books, but with these familiar characters. So kind of a dream project really for all of us, and the books have done really well. I think fans are reacting to like how personal they feel. But yeah, that's been really fun.
Is there like a sort of pressure to like, don't want to upset the fans, but like because it's like you're not
No,
really
we're
working
free
on a
of it
structure?
because it's
Yeah.
like its own continuity or whatever.
Right.
The regular DC universe still exists, so we're not messing with it.
Oh, right.
So we kind of have this weird carte blanche to like mess with it.
Yeah.
And they want it every time we do something really different, they seem to react. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really rewarding.
How did you like kind of fall into doing these like these big two projects?
Well, I'd done my own, I'd done the Essex County graphic novels for Top Shelf in the States, and that was kind of a smaller US publisher. And that would have been like 2005, 2006. And those books were critically acclaimed, but like, they're indie comics.
Nice.
They weren't like selling a lot of copies or anything. But an editor at Vertigo saw Essex County, really liked it, and asked me to pitch something, and I pitched Sweet Tooth, which I didn't think in a million years they would do that, because they don't really do a lot of writer-artist stuff that had like an indie vibe like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they went for it, and that series ran and was really successful for a few years. And then once I was in at Vertigo, some of the regular DC editors started asking me to pitch on the superhero stuff, and I grew up reading that stuff, so I also loved it. And yeah, it's like it was really fun to do, and so I started kind of doing both, and I never just stopped. It's been fun to be able to do both.
You were able to parlay your gas station purchases into
Yes.
like a lifetime career.
That's right.
Everyone, you can do it too. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm so glad that you two came from Toronto to come and visit us. All 2,000 kilometers.
Yes, well, thank you for inviting us to Winnipeg.
Yeah, it's so lovely, yeah, because we have a big comic community here as well, and it's always very surprising to a lot of outsiders that, oh, Winnipeg has a lot of artists, like it's very dense, and everyone really wants to know how to get started, so this is lovely. Do we have any questions in the audience so far? Yes, Lyndon Radchenka.
I would love to know,
Is DC sweater?
my parents bought me this for my birthday. It's comfy, thank you very much.
Okay, sorry.
DC store.
But I would love to know who the first person in each of your lives was that sort of fully bought in and showed that they believed in you
In comics.
in comics.
As a
Like in our families or in the
No,
in
just
the world of
who's
comics?
in your comics journey, who was sort of one of the early adopters that you can recall was sort of all in, because as we know, comics is a hard gig.
Yeah, I'll go first if it's okay. I spent like a good 4 or 5 years kind of doing it in a vacuum where I didn't really, even though there were a ton of cartoonists and artists in Toronto, I, for whatever reason, didn't really run in the same circles as any of them. So I really was in a vacuum doing it by myself. And I did reach a point which we all reach almost, all the time, where I started, is there any value in what I'm doing? Should I stop? Like, am I crazy? And I kind of, I went online, and this was like early internet days, and there were a few cartoonists and artists who would just put their emails out there. I found John Toddleben was a classic artist from the Alan Moore Swamp Thing. I loved those books, and I found his email and I sent him some of my comics, and he sent me back the nicest note, and it was so encouraging. And he said something like, "Yeah, your style is really unique, and just keep doing the thing. Just keep doing the thing you love to do, and as long as you love it, chances are someone else will too." And I know it's like a simple kind of pat thing, but it did keep me going. I gotta say, just thinking, well, if I'm enjoying this, someone else will. And it was kind of like just having someone who I idolized like him kind of show some sort of validation in what I was doing. Certainly got me over the hump and kept me going.
I think for me, it's my partner, because I jumped from so many different careers, like fashion design, and then into film, and then illustration / comics. And, I think my parents were a little frustrated by my, hopping around quite a bit and not being able to decide what I wanted to do. So my partner is always the person who, you know, would read my comics and be like, this is great, you should sell it. And if I have an idea, I tell him and he would always give me feedback. He's always really excited for me when things go well, and he came with me to this festival. I think, yeah, he's like the person, you know, I've had other people who encouraged me growing up, but he's definitely like the person who I run all my ideas by, the person who's excited to hear my new ideas, the person who's like, I can't wait for you to work on this new book, you should work on it right now, which is like obviously
He's a
invaluable.
hype man.
Yeah, he's the hype man.
Yeah. Yeah, he loves French onion soup.
Yeah, he just devoured some and it was amazing.
Yeah. You're great, Trevor. Wherever you are in there.
I think he's in the horror section looking at books.
Okay. Hello, Jonathan.
Sam, you made me very self-conscious of my clothing choices.
Oh my God.
It's really
It's a small town.
You
It's
deserve
a
it.
small town.
How do you two balance working on your own things that you own and the kind of priority of that versus, you know, working with / for other companies on their properties? Like
Like
What's-
simultaneous.
yeah, what's the sort of the balance psychically or however that kind of lets you accomplish that without getting overwhelmed? Or do you just simply get overwhelmed?
That's a lot of it, yeah, I think.
I know I'm really good at compartmentalizing things. Like I really am. So it's like I'm really only thinking about whatever I'm working on. I think the good thing for me is that it kind of helps me avoid burnout or writer's block or whatever, because I'll just work on one thing at a time until I kind of start burning out on it, and then I have this other thing that's totally different waiting for me to kind of. I still get to keep thinking and being creative, but it's like using a different part of my brain or something. But the truth is, like if you were to like average out the amount of hours I spend on my own stuff as opposed to the Marvel, and this is really bad, I shouldn't say this, but I'm always just working on my own stuff, and then I write like a Marvel or piece of script, and like, you know.
It's sort of like time theft, but like good.
Good way.
Yeah, it's like 90% of my time is still drawing that stuff, and then I take a little break and write a script. So, yeah, I think if it did take more of my brain or my time than that, I think it would be a harder challenge. I'd have to make decisions, but I've always been good at sort of just focusing and then jumping over and coming back.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions in the audience out there?
I got a question.
Oh,
Roy doesn't. Front row is so interesting.
So another question for both. You're both writer illustrators for multiple projects, but you've done each separately as well, right? Has there ever been a point where you've considered letting one of the sides go, and even in the past, and just continuing on and just being a writer or just being an illustrator, because maybe it lightened the load a little bit?
I don't think, no, I never thought about that. I think for me, you know, I've been reading comics my whole life, like starting when I was a kid, it was like Garfield and Betty, Veronica. But when I moved to Toronto in my 20s and I found like all these, you know, indie cartoonists like Julie Doucette and Charles Burns and Daniel Clowes, I was just like, wow, this is like amazing. I want to do this. So the idea of giving one up and doing the other would always feel like a disappointment to me, like, oh, I can't do it. Because ultimately I want to be that person. I want to be the cartoonist, like in the driver's seat with the story and the art. I mean, maybe at some point I will decide like I'm going to do one or the other, and it would probably divert to art because that's the thing I have more experience in. But I've never just considered it because I guess at this point I still don't want to give up either one. So for me, like, yeah, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, I think when you're drawing and writing your own material, those two kind of disciplines aren't as separate as, you know, like they're kind of, you're writing as you're drawing.
Yes,
And
yeah.
it's also mixed together. It's not really separated in that way for me, but I do write a lot of stuff that I don't draw, which is a separate thing. And I think, I mean, there definitely will come a time where I start to slow down and retire or whatever, and I probably will just go back to where I started, just writing and drawing one project that I do myself, you know, like I'll give up the collaborative stuff.
Someday, not today.
No,
I wanna
that's-
make that clear.
But you said.
No? We have a question in the back. Yes.
So I guess this question is for both of you, but it kind of plays off something Jen said. Because you mentioned like a lot of times you'll be like halfway through a project and then you start to hate the script and stuff like that. My understanding is, with all due respect, you wrote it. So how do you kind of balance reasonable editing and going back and changing things versus just, like you said, something is better than this hypothetical perfect product? Like how do you, and I'm sorry, maybe that's a hard question to answer, but how do you kind of determine what's reasonable editing versus what's some neurosis that you're just up in your own head about making this perfect thing that you never will, so just get it done, if that makes sense?
No, it does. I mean, I talk about how I wanna throw the whole thing in the garbage when I get halfway through. But I just know in a rational sense that that's like such a waste of time. So I don't really entertain doing it. But going back and doing small edits, like if I can kind of pinpoint, I'm really unhappy with this page, I think this transition isn't strong enough, I think this pacing is off. Doing those kind of fixes can often mitigate that to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep working. And then I usually find once I get farther into the project, there's just something about being halfway through a book that really makes you kind of panic and think, oh my God, I'm wasting my time. And I think as long as you can kind of push past it and do some small changes. Like I've been working on a script for the book, like I mentioned, and at one point through the thumbnail process, I got like 90 pages in and I did throw it in the trash. I was just like, this is not good. And that was the right call in that case because I knew that I was dialing it in. But every other time that I've had that feeling, I knew that it was just like my neuroses. So I think partly it's listening to your gut. I think most of the time your project is better than you think, but I think if you just have this like rotten feeling in your stomach, like I'm not trying my best, this is like not what I want it to be, I do think sometimes you do have to kind of make that hard decision, but it's really hard to know that. I think it's something you just have to really be honest with yourself, like, am I trying my best? Is this my best? Because you're right, you can never make a perfect project, but I think trying your best is kind of like the ideal perfect project, and if you're not trying your best, then I think that can be a good reason to kind of go back and restart.
Yeah, it's a similar thing where there's like an irrational brain and an irrational brain that you're struggling with each day. And there's the irrational brain that is always telling you what you're doing is a waste of time or that it needs to be better or whatever, and you should throw it out. But like Jen said, you kind of know the irrational part is like, no, just it's worth pushing through. And I mean, that's a daily struggle, 25 years in for me still, of like trying to. You have this ideal in your head of like what the book is going to be, and then you get halfway through, you kind of see what it is, and you're almost disappointed that it's not this perfect thing you had in your mind. But you push through knowing it's something is better than nothing, and there is no such thing as perfect, and flaws become part of it. And you know all these things rationally, but sometimes it's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
I'm curious about your relationship with editors and maybe what is the best or worst note you've ever gotten from a comics editor?
Be recent.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like I've worked with so many different editors at so many different companies, and there's some great ones and there's some terrible ones. So it's really different from project to project.
What's the difference between a good editor and a bad editor?
For me, a good editor doesn't tell me anything.
You're so good. We don't need to do anything.
They just send me checks. No, I don't know. Like the good editors are the ones who hired you because they like what you do already, and they get what you do, and they just want you to do your thing, and then they're there to support you. The bad ones are the ones who want to be writing it themselves. So they're constantly telling you. Like I've had experiences, especially at like Marvel and DC, where you can tell the editor really wanted to be writing the book that I'm writing. So instead of, they're just always trying to tell me what to do, or, you know, what they want to do. And then their vision obviously isn't mine, so no constant butting heads. But the good ones are the ones who like already know you and your work and want you to do well. So they kind of just are there to support you when you get stuck or to help you.
Yeah, or I feel like they make actual constructive suggestions where it's like, oh, I like this, but I think that if we learn more about this character, if we added a scene, that's like a really good, I think, editorial suggestion. I haven't had that many bad editorial interactions. I feel like one that stands out is I was working on a script and I added like a whole new scene to the middle of the book just to like give the characters more time to get to know each other. And it wasn't like offensive or anything, but the editor was like, oh, I love this addition because I thought that this was like really lacking before. And so it was kind of like, if you thought that there's something was missing, you should have told me that. So that's kind of a weird thing, but maybe it was something where he didn't realize until I added the scene. So I think just editing can be a real, you know, plethora of experiences, and sometimes it's just like they don't realize something until it's done, or maybe they don't know how you'll take it. But yeah, mostly mine have been like pretty positive, luckily, or at least just like I have nothing to say about them. Like that happened, that's whatever.
Yeah, mostly positive as well. I think most of the editors have had love comics and are there to make the stories better. You know, when you get notes and you're like, oh yeah, that makes it better, you know, and you kind of, and then you start to trust them. And sometimes you get notes where you can tell they're just giving a note just to justify giving it,
Yeah.
you know, their job or whatever. And you're like, oh, this is like just tedious, stupid things. But you know, most of the editors I've worked with, they all love comics and have a good understanding of storytelling, and usually it's pretty supportive.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
How do you handle that note on that topic?
Well, I don't know, like these days
Cry.
I'm
You
like.
have a big yard with a lot of people there.
I just don't do them. You know, like, I mean, if it's really bad, you fight back and tell them why it's bad. If, you know, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think if you get a really bad note, it's gonna make your story worse. You can't do it, like you have to push back.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you will get notes or feedback where someone doesn't really like what you're doing or doesn't like a certain beat, and sometimes that feedback is important because maybe they're seeing something that you don't. But sometimes, you know, the feedback you're getting is because they're envisioning a different story than what you're trying to tell, and in that circumstance you do have to kind of push back, or you just have to kind of like, if you can keep going on and ignore them, that might be what you need to do.
Sometimes you can find a better way to address what they're actually concerned with, but like in a way that you're happy with too, and then you kind of solve the problem your own way. And you know, it's hard to explain that without a specific example, but I think you kind of get the note behind the note of what's bothering them, and you find your own way of addressing it.
Mm-hmm.
You take it to Comics HR.
Yeah, you
And they
get
sit
involved.
they sit you guys down in a room that's like a kindergarten classroom with crayons and paper, and they say, make a comic about your conflict.
No, that sounds so horrible.
Sorry, I'm describing your nightmare.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. We have time maybe for one more question, I think.
No pressure, last question. Less of a serious question, but I'd love to hear about what your happy doodles are. So when you're not working, when you're just drawing for the pure joy of drawing, do you go to like your own characters or fan art, or if there's a certain object, like just for the pure joy of making art?
I don't know, I feel like I'm lucky in that the stuff that I do is kind of that, you know, like my career and stuff. It's always my own little characters, my little world. So that's the stuff that I draw, even when I'm not working on it usually. You know? Like today, I was doodling in between, you know, when it was a slower period of the show, I was doodling and I was just drawing the characters from the monthly book that I draw just for fun. So often.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I draw like characters from my own series, kind of just like in, you know, like little vignette situations, like the characters arguing, or like one of them working at like a video rental store and saying like, the Suspiria remake is better than the original, things like that. Or I also like to, if I need to do something kind of meditative, I like to do a a checkerboard and then I color in, you know, and make it a checkerboard pattern. I do a lot of like squiggles. I draw a lot of leaves and flora. I find that very relaxing because like the organic shapes are very pleasing and just kind of getting lost in the lines. And then I love drawing hair, so I'll just draw like a person, so I can just spend hours drawing their hair because I just find it to be so relaxing and fun. Yeah, so most of my sketchbook, it's like hair, leaves, characters having ridiculous arguments about like the best brand of mac and cheese to buy at the grocery store. Yeah.
I do draw a lot of funny Batmans.
That's a good one.
He's fun to draw for some reason. I don't know why, but I would draw ridiculous Batmans when I'm on the phone or something.
And when I was younger, I used to draw like this horrible little man that I named Rudiger. And I like developed this entire lore around him. Where I'm like, he has a brother named Do-Good and they eat trash and they live in a canoe in someone's
I
backyard.
would buy that book.
Yeah.
Same
You know,
way.
it's like,
Yeah.
See, this is wasn't the
I
same, you
know,
were
it's
copying
just-
codes.
It's just like the kind of weird characters you make up when you're like a edgy, like 10-year-old. You're just like drawing these like sleek characters, but
Right.
I just drew it all the time and drew it in my friends' notebooks in school, and they'd be like, why are you drawing this like goblin in my book? It was just fun, but I think part of it is you draw something fun that has no ego attached to it. So that had no ego because I was just like, look at these ugly drawings, aren't they funny?
Yeah, these are deeply tied to my identity and personhood.
Yeah. I'm strange, do you like me?
Yeah.
Will you be my friend?
Awesome. Yeah, you need to make a weird Batman scene,
Yeah,
although
then
there's.
you can meet Rudiger.
Yeah, wow, the crossover collab, we
Yeah.
didn't know we needed. Well-
Nightmare book.
Yes, very in. Thank you everyone so much. This has been such a lovely evening. And thank you to our wonderful guests coming all the way here, and it was a long day continuing to chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
The fun don't stop though, because we're going to move them to the next table. They will sign some bookie books. And I believe thank you, Daniel. I believe there is some housekeeping and you can take it away.
Yes, again, thank you everybody for showing up today for both in person and online. And yeah, exactly. We'll move along to the signing portion just to the table here. Feel free to have copies signed before you pay for them. Just so long as you visit the cash desk later, that is all good here. I will clear some space over here as well. We have everybody's books right on our shelf just behind the signing table. So I'll clear everything over here so you can have quick access to that. But thank you again so much, everybody. And thank you to our panelists.
Thank you. Are the copies that are at the front also available for them to grab as well?
Exactly, and I can go grab some as well. If you,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Fred and Wilson, and I remember people asked me, N stood for none, because his